So, Samuel, thank you very much for agreeing to be our guest today. We've
No worries.
been running the Fireside chat for some time, and it's usually recorded, and we send out the recordings to our sort of subscriber base, so it will still get out to a lot of people. Now, we usually want to sort of know who you are, how your business is. So we're focusing on Ilana today. And so Samuel and I have not one sort of worked together in a sense. Samuel came to speak to our students, our management accounting students, on his business, focused on Ilana, how Ilana has grown, sort of try to give us a practice perspective on accounting. So that was very useful. The students, we got some really great feedback. So that means, they're quite happy with it. Now, if we go back to Samuel, and we want to know about, so let's go back to where it all started. So growing up, did you always know that you were going to sort of go on and be an entrepreneur, or were you being pushed in a certain direction? Just want to have an idea of where it all started, where the inspiration came from.
It's funny because I like to think that I became an entrepreneur somewhat by need and necessity, as opposed to kind of like seeing it as the career path I wanted to actually go down. So I always aspired to be like an artist or a graphic designer or someone in the creative field, but I never really considered myself an entrepreneur. And yeah, by chance, I would say by fortune, I ended up kind of becoming an entrepreneur. So from early on in school, I would sell Dragon Ball Z images to other students. And yeah, that became my hustle. So I would use that to earn an additional income, aside from the one that my dad gave me. They say the entrepreneurial traits shows up quite early on. So I would say that was my first kind of taste of entrepreneurship. And then, yeah, I didn't really kind of consider entrepreneurship being an avenue until I got to college. So during my gap year of college, I was already attending a charity called 198 Contemporary Arts and Learning, which were a gallery space as well as a space for emerging artists in Herne Hill. And they were running courses for young people not in education or employment. So I was on their courses doing graphic design, illustration, but then trying to further my graphic design desires. And then, yeah, during our gap year, we started up a social enterprise called Hustlebox. And that kind of gave me a raw insight into building a business and growing a business. So, yeah, I was with that organization for 10 years, and the rest is history.
Fantastic. Oh, that's nice to know. I started my own first business at the age of 9. So when you say that, these traits, you begin to exhibit them quite early. So I certainly do agree. Okay, so that's how it started off. Okay, quite interesting there. Now let's move on to, say, the early stages. So I know you've run several businesses, and I know that Ilana is not the first of them. So you've had a history of running several businesses that have brought you to Ilana today. So if you just want to tell us what has happened between the first, well, not in heavy detail, but an overview of what has happened between the first business you started, obviously not the Dragon Ball Z one, but, the first business up until Ilana, and just an overview. I think that would be really helpful.
So as I mentioned, started up the social enterprise when I was 19. So I came to know about the organization through my friend Sarah, who's actually on the call. She was the one who referred it to me. So I got involved with that organization. We set up the social enterprise, and essentially we were a youth-led social enterprise. We trained young people in garment printing and offered a clothing brand. So the idea was that basically we would give young people practical experience that have come through the courses. We were essentially an issue-based clothing brand. So we tackled with various themes that we thought were relevant to young people at the time, because we wanted to essentially be a platform for young people to express themselves. So I ran that for many years. Basically we ended up launching our pop-up shop in collaboration with Central St. Martin's. Did a short course there that led on to me doing my degree there. After I left university, I said I wanted to start up a design business. So I essentially went into branding and communications for startups, medium-sized businesses, as well as entrepreneurs. Did that for many years. Whilst at 198, I was obviously still focusing on the social enterprise, but also joined the board of the charity. And then we started developing our space. So we redeveloped our space from the current space we had. So we decided to build 2 floors on top of the current space. We raised 1.2 million to do that from the government, so the GLA, as well as various funders. And then during that process, I was obviously aware that this was an amazing space we were building. But in terms of accessibility, it's quite difficult for entrepreneurs and young people to engage with such a space. So I decided, you know what, it would be great to have some sort of platform or marketplace which entrepreneurs can use to access space that is local to them at affordable rates. So that's how the idea for Desk was birthed, which was a marketplace for entrepreneurs to find co-working space locally, quickly, and affordably. And Desk was an acronym. It stands for Developing Entrepreneurial Services in Communities. So the idea was that we would have the website that would connect different individuals with space. And then we started working on an app, and the app was twofold. So the idea was behind the app was that basically you'll be able to connect to a space, so entrepreneurs will be able to connect to space. But also, and then as we all know, COVID happened. Nobody's accessing space. Prior to this, we had launched an Airbnb. So, you know, I mean, we had, you know, planned on working on the app through 2020. You know, we had our sights set on really kind of dominating our industry in 2020, and then COVID happened. So it took roughly about 3 months to figure out what I wanted to do next. I was on Twitter one day, and then an influencer said she'll love to come across a Black-owned brand she can spend her coin with. I responded and said, "Oh yeah, that's great, but what would be great is actually a marketplace for Black-owned brands." And I was like, "Actually, that's a good idea. I might build it." And someone responded and build it. Thought about it for a day. Reached out to my co-founder. I said, "Do you want to join me on this journey?" And then we started working on it in June 2020. By November 2020. We had launched. And as I was coming up with the idea, I realized that because of the demographic we're targeting, it needs to be more than a marketplace. It needs to be something that essentially helps designers, you know, to build upon their expertise and essentially launch and scale their brands. And that's how the community concept came about.
Fantastic, great. So, well, thank you. So that really sheds light. Now we're going to sort of now focus on Ilana as a business. You know, trying to really understand how it works. What are some of the key differentiators? Now, when you talk about, so I know that Ilana, from my own understanding of Ilana is twofold in a sense. It has, an online store for Black-owned brands. I think that's a global thing. So an online platform for Black-owned brands. But also there is the community-based side of things where emerging talent in fashion join the platform, and they're paired with an experienced fashion designer to provide feedback on their work. So I do understand those two sides of the business. Now, why did you think of the need to sort of integrate those two parts of the business? Why did you think that you needed to, have the part that is the online store and also have the community base? Was that sort of based on demand, on just how did you come to that mix?
So with me, I think community is important. I mentioned it in the presentation I delivered to your students, that community is at the heart of a lot of things that I do. And essentially, from my perspective, it was like, yeah, we have to have a community. We have to have a community that helps designers, you know, based on running a social enterprise for many years, which was a clothing brand, as well as, you know, an enterprise that trained young people in garment printing. I saw firsthand that there's a real need for designers to gain expertise and to learn significant things in order to scale and develop their brands. So obviously, me not being a fashion designer, you know what I mean? I knew that this is a need based on the experience of running an enterprise. And then I paired with a fashion designer. So she has 16 years experience in fashion, and she also saw the need. You know what I mean? She had run a consulting business as well, where she consulted with other brands. And she had seen firsthand that this was a need that fashion designers genuinely had. And yeah, so we said, you know what? Okay, cool. How can we help them? Do you know what I mean? It'll be great to have some sort of community that they don't just only join, but they're able to get expertise from an experienced expert and someone that they can bounce ideas with, to really kind of understand whether they're doing things right, whether there's things they need to improve upon, and essentially help them to scale from that startup phase.
Fantastic, cool. Now, in terms of so community is very essential, certainly, and especially in this post-COVID era where a lot of things have moved online. Now, I know that the community that you're building is online as well, so so we know that so it's sort of in that area. But now when we think about the community side of things, and I know I've asked this question, but it's also for the benefit of the audience. And just so that we know, it's a fireside chat, and we're very welcome to put questions in the chat. So if you have any questions for our guests as we go on, please feel free to pop those questions in the chat, and we'll take it as we go. And also, we usually give, we have two sets of giveaways. We have two £20 Amazon vouchers that we do give out at the end of every fireside chat. And we also have one of our sponsors, the William Factory, also gives out $46 worth of snacks from fully charged allergy-friendly snacks. So please, if you are so I know, Deborah, you've just joined in. If you could just type in the chat the location you're calling in from. Are you from the UK or are you from the States, so that we know which of the spinners to put your name in. Okay, so Sarah has put in the chat saying, so this is a question for you, Samuel, that what is the meaning of Ilana and what is the story behind the name? Okay.
So Ilana means creating a pathway. No, it actually means pathway in Yoruba. And it's funny because basically I was thinking about trees or something that connects. And then I asked my dad, what is the meaning of pathway? And yeah, he said Ilana was the name. So he said, yeah, okay, that works. So we looked at it in different languages as well. So in Greek, it means tree. And various, so there was various connotations that really aligned with our purpose, our values, and what we were trying to build. And that's essentially the inspiration behind the tagline, creating a pathway for emerging talent. So so it's Yoruba for pathway.
Okay, fantastic, great. Now, so let's walk through, if you want to just sort of tell us a bit more about Ilana. So if you tell us about, so I've been on Ilana's website, I've looked at some of the clothes that they sell. If you want to really just give us a good overview of what Ilana does, the fashion bit. You've told us what the community-based platform does, but the fashion side, if you want to just provide an overview, please.
So we're a store for luxury Black fashion brands and a platform for fashion designers to gain expertise. So from a consumer perspective, they can shop with the different brands that are on our platform, that are luxury, premium, based in various locations. At the moment, we currently have 3 brands, one in Ghana, 2 in Ghana and 1 in Nigeria. And essentially the brands that we've worked with up until this point are well-established brands in West Africa. So they're featured on Vogue. They're well known. That one of the brands also has some work on Folklore, Farfetch. So they're well-established brands that we're working with and looking to build and develop when it comes to the store aspect. So I guess the incentive for them is to sell to a European and Western market. A lot of the designers based in West Africa only sell to the West African market. So we're trying to encourage West Africa, basically.
Okay, cool. Now, in terms of that, so it's luxuries, because I on your website, I don't know if you saw the R.E.A.L campaign I sent out yesterday. I put some of my top picks, and I really liked the Adana pants, and I think it was going for like 400 and something quid. Am I correct? Well, it was something within that range. Okay, so but my question is why luxury? Why luxury? Why did you decide that it'll be
that's a good that's a good question. From our perspective, we essentially wanted to focus on just Black-owned brands. And it was actually through a conversation I had through with the creative director of a brand called Labrum. So Labrum was Sierra Leone menswear brand. And yeah, I sat down with them and I kind of I got his feedback because this is someone who's obviously been in the industry for many years and I've known him for many years. And I just kind of sat down, told him about the idea of Alana, asked his opinion and feedback and thought, okay, what would be your advice? And his perspective was that luxury brands are not going to want to stock with fast fashion brands or high street brands. That it's probably better I pick luxury brands and stick to that, as opposed to starting off with high street brands, because it's harder for us to pull luxury brands if we start off with high street brands than if we were to go the other way around. Um, and Jay said that the reality is that they're not going to want to stock with each other because luxury are in a category of luxury for a particular reason. So, and then obviously with the price margins as well, it made more sense. If it's a situation where selling an item for £400 and we're taking 20% of that, that's a significant difference than if we were selling an item for £40 and we were saying, let's take 20% of that. It wouldn't make sense from a cost perspective, from a logistics perspective, because even when it comes to shipping items from abroad into the UK, there is a custom fee that you have to pay. And then, yeah, it wouldn't make sense from a cost perspective if we were to do low cost items.
Yeah. Now that you've explained that, it does really make a lot of sense, especially from the cost perspective. You know, if you were going to be bringing in, sort of African inspired clothes from Africa down here, and you're selling them at the basic rate again, it does make sense. Especially, I think another strong point there in what you said was the fact that it's better to start with luxury, and then so maybe over time, if you do think you want to bring in high street, it's much more easier than the other way around, doing high street and then trying to get luxury in. Yeah. Okay, cool. Now, in terms of your designers, so now you said that you work with some of the top designers in West Africa. What's your onboarding process like? How do you find these fashion designers in West Africa? Because again, I'm West African, I'm Nigerian, so I know it's a whole different ballgame there. So what is the process of onboarding? How do you know the authenticity of the fashion designers you're picking? Again, so I just want to tell us how you do that. I think that'll be great.
So I mainly lean into the experience of my co-founder, considering she's got 16 years experience in fashion. She knows what a luxury brand is, considering she's worked in fashion in the luxury sector for many years as well. So when it comes to myself coming across a brand, or she comes across a brand, we'll both send it to one another, kind of get thoughts, and then reach out to that brand. But the initial brands that we started working with, based on how difficult we realized it was, because we initially wanted to start off with, I think it was 16 brands, 12 or 16 brands. When we started reaching out to these brands, a lot of them were giving us no's. So it got to the 2-month stage and we were like, actually, we might have a problem on our hands. If we don't manage to recruit brands, we're not going to be able to launch the time that we had anticipated on launching. So I reached out, I put out a call out on Twitter for someone to help us recruit brands on ground. And we recruited a writer, he writes for Vogue, he writes for many well-established fashion brands. And he said he's got a relationship with a lot of brands. So we hired him to recruit 6 brands. Actually 12 brands. We then whittled it way down to 6, and then we ended up launching with 3. We were going to go with 4, but then one of the brands on the day let us down. They hadn't sent the contract, they hadn't put certain things in place, so we just said, you know what, we'll just launch with the 3. And that's what we ended up doing. But it's extremely difficult to find brands that not only are aligned with our values, they also meet the standards of quality. So that's something that, we've actually seen that it's a challenge to find. But one of the things that we're doing moving forward is essentially just working with people or working with organizations that already have relationships with designers and brands on ground to make that onboarding process a lot easier. We recruited some of the students from the MA course at Westminster Business School as well. So they're helping us to recruit designers in the community, as well as looking for brands that could potentially sign up. So from our perspective, moving forward is just connecting with organizations that already have designers on ground that they could recommend and vouch for.
Yeah, cool. Because it can really be a nightmare sometimes, especially when it becomes an international thing. There are just so many factors to take into consideration: shipping, the cost of shipping, the quality, like you said, especially, and why your business is so quality sensitive, because it's a luxury brand. If you cannot afford to get the quality right, so that onboarding process has to be as strict as possible. Fantastic. Now, if we move on now, if we look at Ilana, and the focus here is again the online store. Now, why do you, so this is just a question, but do you think that focusing on Black-owned brands is a bit restrictive as a niche market? Again, what are your thoughts on this? Yeah, I think I'll leave that to you to just tell us what you think.
No, I don't think it is restrictive. I think from a marketing perspective and from the size of the market perspective, it might be considered restrictive. But the reality is there's so many luxury Black brands out there. Do you know what I mean? And there will constantly be Black-owned brands that we can onboard onto our platform. And in part, there are a lot of marketplaces you can go to in the fashion sector that are doing brands that are European, brands that are Black, brands that are, do you know what I mean, from various countries. To now say we're specifically going to focus on Black brands because there is value, there is quality, there is, a sector that is being ignored and not being, do you know what I mean, appreciated, sets us apart. It really does set us apart. So people will come to us for the fact that we're Black owned. So I think that helps us to actually narrow our focus in a crowded market.
Okay, cool. It does. And well, you're right. In terms of Black-owned luxury brands, I don't think I've come across that, to be honest. I think that's a very, very niche area. So it's something, So I think you'd have something there. But again, with these things, now, if we move to the community side of things, and so from what I understand, say a fashion designer joins Ilana, the community-based platform. That's the community side of things, and they launch. And I think I've asked you this question in the past, but for the sake of the audience here, what are the safeguards in place to ensure that if they share their designs with the mentor that they've been paired with, that it's not stolen? Is there an NDA signed, or what exactly are the safeguards in place?
So we currently have a contract with all our experts that they won't be able to share or they won't be able to work on any of the designs shared with them. So there won't be any stealing as far as we're concerned. And if that happens, there will be precautions we will take. So we will actually prosecute if necessary.
Okay, fantastic. Now, so other than now that we see, so if you want to tell us, how long has Ilana been running from? Is it since the pandemic?
Yeah, so just over 2 years. So we turned 2 years 10 days ago. We launched on the 20th of November, 2020.
Congratulations on that one. That's a huge milestone. Now, in terms of that, so we're coming from, so the platform I'm coming from is Founders and Mentors, and it's a community-based platform for the pre-launch ecosystem. So what we tend to do there is we have, we work with entrepreneurs at the early stage of their businesses, so those at the pre-launch stage of their businesses. And so when they join, they're paired with a mentor. The services are free, to be honest. What we're really trying to do is trying to reduce the failure rate at the early stage of the business. So now, the community I run, for example, is called the Business Operations Community. So I come from more of a finance and accounting and a more operational perspective to running a business. Now, I've been doing that for some time, and running a community is not the easiest of things. Because
it's hard.
When you start running a community, it's always the big challenge there is keeping the engagement up. How do you get people to react to the posts you make? How do you get people to interact with the content that you're creating and stuff like that? So I would want to lean on to you for your for some, ideas, since you've run Ilana for 2 years. Now, when you look at the community of Ilana and the community of fashion designers, how do you tend to keep the engagement up? Because that can really be the tricky side of community-based platforms.
I agree. And we're still learning. Do you know what I mean? I think for us, it's about trying what works, and then experimenting as much as possible with our customer base. When they go through the 4-stage process. Sorry, I might have lost you for a bit. Did you hear what I said? Okay.
Yes, I did.
Okay, yes. Basically, I was saying that we're still experimenting with us. What we did do in the early stages of building our community is we put all the designers into a WhatsApp group. And we said, you know what, this is going to be your number one port of contact. If you need support, advice, essentially just reach out to us via the WhatsApp. But again, that became difficult to engage. Do you know what I mean? People will post comments or post messages in there quite early on, or they'll message me privately and not post in the group. So that became difficult to maintain. But for us, we feel that because they're partnered with an expert, there is that constant feedback between them and their expert. And not only that, we're looking to implement more things into the platform moving forward. So for version 2, there's going to be like a portfolio section in the profiles, where they could actually submit their profiles rather than actually having a link to their work, which they currently do at the moment. And then we're just looking at new ways we can just then keep them engaged. We also have a membership which they can sign up to, which we're going to be updating with content on a regular basis. So we're looking at different ways to keep them engaged. But yeah, that's a real challenge. I think for any business that is community and online focused, the main question is, how do you keep them engaged? And even the big brands struggle. Do you know what I mean? I think even the Facebooks and the Instagrams and the Twitters struggle to maintain users or to maintain engagement, because there is so much at the user's disposal these days. Do you know what I mean? There's so many things fighting for their attention. So you're one extra thing they have to think about. And essentially, that's why we wanted to be an added value platform as well. We wanted to say, okay, what sets us apart is the expertise you're going to get. This is not like any other platform. You can go on platforms for entertainment and connecting with people, but this is more of a work tool. This is something you can use in your day-to-day life as you're building your brand and developing your concepts to really scale what you're doing to the next level.
Okay, fantastic. That really helps. I think so. Simon is one of the co-founders. He's usually here. I'm not sure why he's not here today, but that's fine. But he shared this document with me, and one of the things in that document that said, how do you get engagement on communities like that? And one of the things that they really highlighted was it's not a game of numbers. If you have only 2 or 3 people that are constantly engaging, that is much more important than having 1,000 people that are not engaging at all. So again, it's in the small numbers, and it's trying to again, like you said, adding some form of value, because the power in the hands of the users is so high that they have so many tools at their disposal. So like you've said, this is just one extra thing that they have to think about. So it's a case of, how do you pull their attention away from the LinkedIn and the Facebook and the Instas, where there's so much going on, and bring them to this quiet platform where there might be not as much going on. So I think, again, it's really getting your value very correctly, and really thinking to yourself, if my clients or my customers or my users or whoever they are come on the platform, what are they coming in here for? What exactly is pulling them in? And to be honest, it's something I've struggled with. Maybe I'm not putting enough effort, but again, you just tend to see, other than the regulars that would share your post in the community, you don't tend to get the newbies being actively engaged. So it's always that constant loop of how do we keep, especially the newbies, how do we get them on and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But I think it's an art. There's no definite way of
Yeah.
doing it. You just keep trying, and hopefully at some point
Yeah,
you
it's
get from.
experimenting.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's experimentation. Especially when you're pioneering something new. The reality is that you've got to keep testing ideas. Do you know what I mean? Keep testing what works and implement. Sorry, keep testing or keep experimenting and implementing what works. So the reality is that you can only do that through trial and error. Finding out if the users that are coming on the platform like this new feature or they don't. Do you know what I mean? Seeing potentially how things work, whether they understand it. Like for us, we're kind of reevaluating the user experience of the designers that join our community. Do they understand it? Do they get it? Are they not engaged because they don't know how to go through the process? Is the process confusing to them? These are questions that you constantly have to ask. And in asking those questions, you're now able to identify, okay, these are things that do work and these are things that don't, and lean into the things that do.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Now, sort of within that same Ilana, base. Now let's think about how you've merged fashion and tech. So bringing that together. Now, why did you think that? Obviously, you said you started in the pandemic, so it had to be an online approach because
Yeah.
we're all in lockdown and stuff. But if we think about the future, say 5 to 10 years, do you see an Ilana brick and mortar store, or do you think it's going to be an online based business for as long as it exists?
Yeah, we do see ourselves as a brick and mortar store, specifically with our own brand. So we intend to cultivate our own brand called Alana, which people will be able to buy their own clothing with. So similar to the ASOSs and similar to the Amazons, they currently have their own brands. So we plan to eventually launch our own brand. We actually worked on our own piece and developed our own piece that we were looking to bring to market, and that still is in the timeline. That's still something we're looking to do. But yeah, for us, yeah, we've always seen it as a brick and mortar store. We see ourselves, being internationally known for the luxury black brand sector. So yeah, I'm excited about those days. I eventually plan to get into stores, but I think with the store experience now, because everything's so accessible online, there has to be something unique about you. So that's something that even when we come to that place, we will actually be looking at bringing something new to the retail sector. It can't just be a conventional store. Olana is so much bigger than what we sell. It's do you know what I mean, the ethos behind why we exist, the community that we serve and the community that we help make us different from anyone else out there. So yeah, for us, we would be looking to redefine how we do retail.
Okay, fantastic. Now I have a very long question for you from Tim. So here, okay, so we'll come to that. Several questions have popped in. So Samuel, are you looking for clothing designers that may be located in Seattle, Tacoma region? How might they start the conversation to connect with Ilana? Can they join the Ilana WhatsApp group? So this is Tim. So I know that there are a few fashion designers that Tim works with, because Tim is the executive director of the Williams Factory Incubator. I know that some fashion brands that, entrepreneurs that he does work with. So what we're trying to say is the onboarding process here that we've talked about already, but, how can they start the conversation with Ilana if they want to sort of start something with you, and that can they join the WhatsApp group? So Samuel.
Yeah, they're more than happy to join the WhatsApp group. There's not really much happening in a WhatsApp group at the moment, to be honest. But yeah, they're more than happy to just start a conversation. Just reach out to me by email. You can forward the website to them as well. They can actually sign up to the community, and then one of us will get back to them within 2 hours, within a few hours, basically. So yeah, you can either forward them their website or get my email from Winifred, and yeah, put me in touch with them. I'm happy to serve them and help them. Our community is open to every designer, regardless of their background, by the way. So with our community, is not restricted to them being black brands or black designers. That's open to everyone. Anyone, regardless of where they are, can join our platform and gain our expertise.
Fantastic. Give me a second. I'll just put Samuel's email here. Samuel's email. There. So that's it. Now, I have another question for you, says Kevin. Sorry, I missed the introduction. Can someone speak about his experience at the University of Arts London? Are you building community via fashion students? And I was going to come to that as well. Since you are focusing on emerging talents, do you have a strategy with universities and stuff? So I'll come to that question as well. But here, are you building community via fashion students? Also, will Ilana collaborate with other platforms, like not just the label? So I think we can go step by step and start with your experience at the University of Arts London, and then we move to the second part of the question.
University of the Arts London was great. Central St. Martin specifically is a great university. Not so much because of what they teach you, but the caliber of the students you're surrounded around. I had some of the best creative talent around me. Do you know what I mean? And it's impossible to be in an environment like Central St. Martin's and not be inspired or not be challenged and not want to push your creativity to the next level. So I would say for anyone considering going to R.E.A.L, that's a great place to look at. I still have relationships with Central St. Martin's. I spoke to the students the year we launched, or year after we launched in 2021. So I spoke to the graduates, just kind of sharing my experience with them, how life's been, giving them some advice before they graduated. I look to plug into their community as well. So I'm tied to connect to the network, which is essentially the entrepreneurial arm or the enterprise and arm of R.E.A.L. And they work with various students that have left university or just about to graduate. So I've done some talks with them and looking to plug into their network as well. So I've reached out to them about connecting us with other designers. But the challenge is that, especially as a university student, because you're already in uni, you don't see a need to actually be part of a platform like Alana. So our kind of key demographic is the self-taught designer, the designer that's not in uni, that hasn't really had that pathway or that route, that needs experience or expertise, because there's a lot of designers that are self-taught, a lot of designers that have talent or like to do, clothing in their spare time, but they have no support system, so we're essentially the kind of avenue aside from university for those designers. With a lot of designers we try to engage with that go to uni, they're like, well, I'm not sure I need it. I'm already getting lectures, I'm already a part of university, there is a clear path for me to get into the fashion industry. So we're looking at the niches and the people that ain't.
Yeah, he's gone.
Okay, that makes sense. But also now another thing is, so if we look at the university students, but the thing is, even though the fashion students do have a clear pathway into the fashion world, they don't necessarily have the networks you see that they would get on the community, if that makes sense. So
they don't have the international network. They have they do have the international network, I would say, because they're connected with designers from China, designers from Europe, designers from all around the world. Do you know what I mean? On their courses. Oh. So there is less of an incentive for them to want to build community because they're surrounded around community. There's various activities they can get involved in at university, depending on how engaged they want to be. So from the designer, especially the designer in the UK that goes to R.E.A.L or university of that caliber, exactly, they will already have a network, or they already have a certain level of talent to them. You know what I mean? So from their perspective, they're not thinking about joining a platform where they can be partnered with an expert, because in their minds, they're like, I'm already training to be an expert. I'm someone, I'm doing things that are cutting edge. I'm already established, at a university that's considered world-renowned. I don't need your support. Do you know what I mean? There is a lot of pride in the art sector. Do you know what I mean? A lot of designers, especially designers that go to R.E.A.L or prestigious university or art schools, don't see a need for the service that we're offering. They see it as more from a perspective of, I would rather like to consult, become an expert, or rather than actually join the platform and gain the expertise themselves.
Okay, great. Now, but also, I think, like you've clearly said, it's a case of the caliber of the university. So R.E.A.L is quite a high-ranking university, so I do understand where they're coming from, but not all universities and not all fashion students would have that the opportunity that UAL
Definitely.
fashion students would have. So what I'm trying to say is that I still think there is, when you go to sort of universities at the lower end of the spectrum or at the mid end of the mid of the spectrum, I think there's still some room to cater to.
Of course, definitely. There will always be, always be opportunities.
Okay, cool. So the
Definitely, there will always be opportunities there. I think for us, we're not closing ourselves to collaborations. Do you know what I mean? If there's a university that would like to partner with us, that sees, value in what we're doing, would like to add support us, we're open to those conversations. But what I found that with universities, especially approaching senior lecturers, they kind of look at it from the perspective of what is the incentive here? Why should we help you? Do you know what I mean? Why should we refer our students to you? Is this something that, do you know what I mean, they're going to have to pay for? So that it becomes a complicated conversation to have. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, from their perspective, it's like, even if we approach them to say, you know what, let's just join our community and become experts, they're like, well, we're tied into a contract with the university. We can't really consult and get paid for it. So it becomes like, oh, we can't consult. Do you know what I mean? So it becomes a situation where it's like, what's the motivation here? What is your angle? Why are you reaching out to us? Do you know what I mean? There is that question that a lot of universities look at and say, okay, are you genuine, or is this something that's going to be a conflict of interest?
Okay, great. Okay, good. But at least there's something there. Now, the third part of Kevin's question is also, will Ilana collaborate with other fashion platforms, like not just the label? So
we're looking at collaborating with other platforms. What we do is so unique. There's no one else in the market doing what we're doing. So we're hoping to those conversations. I did reach out to Just the Label. I didn't get a response. But yeah, I'm open to a conversation with them or to other platforms that are similar to them. Like I said, I think for us moving forward, the way for us to actually filter the designers that are on ground is by working with organizations that are already on ground, doing incredible work, and getting them to be the ones that actually recommend designers to us. That's the best way to do it, because unless we're on ground there, it'll be very hard for us to gauge.
Sorry, 1 second.
Someone's just joined and their noise is really loud.
Their audio
noise.
Okay.
So for us, unless we're on ground there, it's very difficult for us to be able to gauge and filter what stage and what level they are in terms of their brand, and whether they're, a quality brand, a luxury brand, or whether they're in genuine need of support. So if we have organizations we're already working with that already have a pool of designers we can engage with, that helps us.
Okay, cool. Now, Katarzyna says, how many community members do you have currently on Ilana? What is it like?
So we have just under 100 registered and signed up. Out of that, about 30 currently have profiles. We're looking to get to over 100 by the end of this. Well, we're looking to get to over 150 by the end of this week, with the support of the MA students at Westminster University Business School. So they've signed up, a whole bag of designers based in India. But from our perspective, they need to upload profiles. They need to actually start engaging with the community. So that's one of the things that we've identified with our user experience as well. Because when someone signs up, they fill out a form and then we get back to them. We do tend to see drop off between that stage. So when someone signs up to when they actually get on the platform and actually upload their profiles, there is a bit of a drop off rate, which we're trying to solve. But at the moment, it's coming about 30 designers.
Fantastic. Congratulations on those numbers. I think that's impressive. It's now a case of when they come in, how do we keep them engaged? I think that's always
exactly,
that's always the dicey part. But anyways, all the best. Yeah. But then, you see that then with the University of Westminster, they're quite keen, and there'll be other universities like that I'll be quite keen on, because one thing for me, when I put on my academia hat, there's always the challenge of getting the practice side of learning to students. So there's just so much theory. Sometimes having these things like Ilana, like founders and mentors, and having universities partner with these organizations does really make a huge difference. If not, students are just so bored with the theory. And you have to, when these kinds of things, I think they'll be quite excited about it. Why I'm saying this is because founders and mentors, we usually have our annual sort of anniversary in a sense. And last year we partnered with the university, with Anglia Ruskin University, the London campus. And students were the ones that helped us organize it, put it together. And it was, and the specific students were the students studying events, BA events or something like that. So I think it was really helpful for them to really have the hands-on experience of putting a sort of a medium scale event together and just understanding the whole process. So, I think that there's always space for more university and more practice-based.
Absolutely. And we're open to the conversation. Definitely. I think collaboration is something that is vital in the day and age that we're in, especially post-pandemic. A lot of organizations, small businesses need to collaborate to survive. I don't think we can survive the challenging economic times we're in without collaboration. So yeah, definitely, we're open to a conversation with universities to engage with more universities like University of Westminster, and that are keen to support us, bringing other designers or connecting us with other designers, and seeing how things develop. We do eventually see ourselves, the more established we become, the more attractive we'll become to universities.
Certainly.
I think obviously just at the stage that we're at, it can be difficult for us to have those conversations because it's like, okay, what is your motivations here? Do you intend to steal our students? Like, what, do you know what I mean? How credible are you? So it can be difficult to have those conversations at this stage, but as we grow, yeah, definitely we see that more universities will be interested.
Okay, fantastic. And I think it's always a case, like the life cycle that you are in is, quite sensitive at the moment. It's a case of, if you say you've been running for 10 years, it will be a case walk in the park to get them on board, like you said. So yeah. Katarzyna has another question. Samuel, you said that you started your journey by setting up a social enterprise. Now you have Ilana. Is social enterprise safer way of starting your own business? So again, it's a case of you started off from the social angle. Do you think, if you decide to start a business today, do you think starting a social enterprise first before you go into the profit side of things, do you think that's a good strategy?
Yeah, I think you have to really define why you're getting into business quite early on. Because business and entrepreneurship is a hard journey. You need to figure out your why. And for me, people has always been at the heart of what I do. I'm a people first kind of person, so the reality is that social enterprise naturally comes to me because I'm always looking at how can I add value to the people around me. But yeah, definitely that experience, if you're working in social enterprise or working in an enterprise of any kind of definition, it helps you gain the perspective, the insights, the knowledge, to be able to really start your own thing. So definitely I used my time at HustleBucks as a training ground, and I gained as much information, gained as much value, gained as much connections as possible to ensure that when I started my own thing, I would be in a better position than if I didn't.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for that one, Samuel. I think that was quite helpful. Now, as we begin to round up, I think okay, and Katarzyna says thank you as well. What we'll just quickly ask you is the cost structure. Again, being an accountant, I'm quite interested in the cost side of things. Now, if you just want to walk us through, not an extensive view, but just how do you manage the cost of the business? I know it will not be massive, but in terms of at this early stage where, this is the stage where the cash isn't coming in as it should be, which is typical. The spending might be higher than the cash coming in. How are you managing this stage of the business?
That's a great question. For me, I'm bootstrapping. So a lot of the funds and a lot of the things that we're doing for Nano is out of my own pocket. So that's how I'm managing finances. I work with an accountant as well. who currently helps file our accounts and does various things that we need to do to ensure that we're above board from a legal perspective. Yeah, so for me, it's bootstrapping. Any money that comes in, I allocate it towards potential things we need to do. Thankfully, the cost of running a Lana is not that high for us. So yeah, so we're able to keep going. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think our runway is a lot longer than a lot of these e-commerce stores that are having to pay hundreds or thousands to maintain their operation.
Okay, fantastic, great. And I think that's one thing, and that's one of the philosophies we try to promote so well at Founders and Mentors, to say bootstrap, within the early first few years, say first year, certainly first 2 years, you bootstrap. And once you've been able to prove validation that there is some sense of demand, then you start seeking finance. It's not the other way around. People tend to, as soon as they launch the business, they want to start looking for external finance, but it doesn't work like that. So, it's quite helpful that you've...
Especially if you're an ethnic minority founder, the reality is that there are, and I'm pretty sure Tim can attest to this, there are founders, especially in America, that can raise off just, a napkin or an idea on a piece of paper. So I've heard those experiences, do you know what I mean? But that doesn't typically tend to be the experience of an ethnic minority founder. I think we have to put in twice as much work in order to prove that we are competent and we know what we're doing. Like, we're less likely to receive investment. Even if you look at the statistics, like less than 2% of Black founders get investment. Do you know what I mean? So the reality is that we're in a sector that doesn't really invest in us anyway. So in order for us to get the investment, we're going to have to prove via our metrics and via whatever means necessary to show that our business is credible. We're not playing by the same rules as everyone else, unfortunately.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Thanks for adding that on. So we're very much coming to the end of the conversation, and I've enjoyed it very well. I'm sure everyone has. We usually have our giveaway, so we'll quickly do the giveaways. All right, so I'm going to spin it now. Peter gets the first Amazon voucher. So Peter, if you could please put your name and your email in the chat. Peter, if you put your email in the chat, that'll be great. Okay, so we're going to take Peter off. Going to spin it one more time for the second Amazon voucher. Is there anyone in the UK that their name is not here? So I've got Samuel, Katarzyna, Sarah. Kevin, are you based in the US or UK? So that we're sure. Oh, Kevin is in the US. Okay, so that means we're all good here. So Katarzyna, there you go. Yeah, so Katarzyna, I do have your email and I'll be in touch. Okay. All right, so we move now to the, let's see if we can move this. So we're now going to spin for the $46 worth of snacks from Fully Charged Allergy-Friendly Snacks. So we've got the 4 Americans here. So I'm going to click. There you go. So Nikki, I have
finally! Gosh, finally! Woo!
Yeah, finally, I know.
I've been trying for how many, 5 months?
I know.
I just like winning.
Fantastic. So Nikki, I have your email. You don't need to send it to me. Peter, okay, so Peter, you put your email, I'll take it. So Samuel, we've come to the end of this, and what do you want to leave us with? Any final words? It's now 7:30 on the spot. Any final words before we leave?
Focus on the work, the accolades will come, and just really understand your why behind what you're doing. The reality is, on average, it takes about 10 years to be an overnight success. So are you willing to put in that 10 years to be the success you want to be? And in order for you to be an entrepreneur and put in those years, you need to know your why, and you need to know why you're doing what you're doing. So just make sure, you're starting business with the right motives and you've got your priorities in check, because it's a hard journey.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I think that 10 years on average is very, very important, because people tend to think it's going to happen overnight, which it's never going to happen overnight. It will take a bit of time. So thank you very much for being gracious with your time, Samuel. The session or the chat was recorded. So once I do some editing, I'll send it out to you and the email list once.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for your time. And we're now at the end, and I'll see you at our next